week 11, and now we got our sells for the week. So, Tony, why don't we just hop right in, man? Give us that number one sell of the week.
Okay, well, this first one is a little bit of a risk sell, I would say, but a guy that I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking ahead. I like to do that. Looking at schedules, thinking big picture. Joe Mixon is a guy for me that I'm putting him out there. I'm trying to see what I could get for Mr. Joe Mixon. Houston has definitely leaned heavily on this guy. He's been a bit of a volume monster in this offense. But I have a couple of concerns with him if I'm thinking rest of season. Number one, we got Nico Collins looking to come back in this passing game, which could take some of the burden off of Joe Mixon to be as involved in the offense. Certainly not carrying the same type of load. But I'm also kind of looking at the playoffs. I'm really this time of the year now, going into week 11, you're starting to think about the playoffs, looking ahead at the schedule. And I'm really, really nervous about Mixon because in week 16 and 17, they have both the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, and they're just brutal matchups for running backs. So I'm nervous because I'm trying to set up my roster to both make the playoffs, but also, you don't want to just make the playoffs, you want to win. Mm-hmm. And if you get there, certainly, you want to have the best guys you can get who give you the highest upside in those playoff weeks. So he's a guy for me that I'm looking at trying to maybe to flip or get another player at the running back position that I trust a little bit more, kind of going down the stretch.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. I would also add he's already missed some games this year, and he's missed games almost every year, even when he was with the Bengals. Like, he's always missing games. And so with that kind of workload and that kind of schedule, he's also a pretty high injury risk, I believe. So just another reason to think about flipping that guy.
Right. Definitely.
So all right, let's move on to guy number 2.
I'm going to give you another running back. This guy may be a little bit of an easier pitch, I would say, to guys who are looking to sell players. And that's Kareem Hunt with the Kansas City Chiefs. Look, he's been a great, adequate fill-in. If you're able to get him, I'm sure you grab them off of waivers at some point here. Has not been terribly efficient running the football, but he has been quite a bit involved in the passing game. This past Sunday with 7 receptions out of the backfields, which is really nice. Mm-hmm. My concern is he does have a couple of nice matchups coming, so and that's certainly not a sense of urgency to move him today. But it very, very quickly shifts over once we get through the next 3 weeks into a really, really tough stretch with the Chargers, the Browns, the Texans, and the Steelers. And so that, again, has me really concerned about his value and his upside rest of season. And we've also got Pacheco, who's going to be making his way back from IR. So combination of this schedule, once we get past the next couple of weeks, with the potential return of Pacheco, has me looking at Kareem Hunt as kind of a sell opportunity.
Yeah, Pacheco coming back and the hard schedule kind of coincide with one another. So it's like in a couple of weeks, all of a sudden, less touches and harder matchups that's not a thing you want on your roster going into the playoffs for sure. All right.
Yeah.
And then we've got our Mr. Irrelevant. Who's the last guy you're getting rid of this week?
Yeah. This is a little bit of a tougher one for me. I will admit that. Kind of a guy that if you have, you're excited to see what he's been doing. and that's George Pickens. Um, he's got a guy who's definitely, I think, overperformed where maybe you would have expected him to finish in fantasy the past couple of weeks. He's had some nice spots, and look, he also has a couple of nice matchups here coming up over the next couple of weeks. He's got Cleveland at Cincinnati. He's got Cleveland again, who've been kind of somewhat easy against the receiver position. But then going into the fantasy playoff stretch, at Philly, at Baltimore, and then a brutal matchup in Week 17 with Kansas City. And so, yeah, sometimes it's hard to think that far ahead, but you've got to be thinking that way if you're looking at making the playoffs. Now, if you're still kind of in the hunt, you're trying to secure a position in the playoffs, it's a little bit more difficult to move a guy like this right now because he does have a couple of nice games coming up. But if you're in a really nice place and you can afford to move Pickens and you're trying to set up your roster for the fantasy playoffs, in particular that championship week, Pickens is a guy I don't know if I'm a Pickens owner, if I can play him in Week 17 against Kansas City. If I trust him in that spot or in the playoffs at Philly and at Baltimore. Those are tough matchups. So so Pickens, like I said, he's got some nice games coming up, but once we get to that playoffs, in particular that championship matchup, he's a guy that I really don't want any part of.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. But you're right. He has outperformed what I would have expected him to do in an Arthur Smith offense.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't think they were going to throw the ball very often, but they have. And, of course, probably because they got better QB there than they had in Atlanta when he was there. So I'm sure that plays a role, but it's not what I expected. He has outperformed that, been kind of a pleasant surprise. But, yeah, that championship matchup is the worst. So, all right, Tony, appreciate you, sir. Everybody, go out and sell these bums, as we say, and good luck in Week 11, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Kyle.